Since taking this class about the history of the Black legend, I have become hyper-aware of the implicit racism around me. In school, on signs, what people do, how they act, what people say, or what they don't. In fact, most of the time it was what isn't said that makes something racist. But I'm here to discuss the racism that is loud and proud and prevalent in the society we live in today. It is important to note that the U.S. was built on racism. It is the very reason it is the U.S. today as we know it. The reason it is still very much prevalent and practiced, whether intentional or not, is because it is taught. I believe that racist ideas are taught to students when they are like sponges, absorbing anything and everything being told to them, and then later regurgitating it. This is clear when Christine Slater discusses the existence of statewide or national history standards as a roundabout way of planting those racist seeds into the minds of students. I was never engaged in history or social studies or social science classes or whatever you want to call it now, and now I know why. The content is controlled by many factors, and they all have one thing in common. Either they are white or want to instill white ideas in the next generation, or both. This class has truly taught me that there are many sides to the same event in history, and it is something profound to wrap my head around, or to even try it. What I was continuously taught in all my years of schooling was one perspective of the past couple hundred years. What I'm learning now is to learn how to unthink that. Both the content and the time period from which history textbooks are written are controlled and regulated. It is always the same thing. The signing of the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson, the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln, slavery and its abolition, to name the major ones. I am now having yet another epiphany about the system instilling that white people are the good guys of history, the heroes who saved everyone righteously, and that they are always correct. Slater continues to argue that textbooks painted past actions and decisions of the white man in this angelic light, flawless, with white wings and everything, no mistakes were made. The best part is that I'm only learning this now, in college. But better late than never, right? Year after year, the curriculum was set in stone, never to be reckoned with, and I never questioned why until now. I always got bored of being told the same thing about the things I previously mentioned, and always wondered, why am I learning this? I'm never going to use this information. This affected my ability to strive to do well in the class because there was no form of affirmation or testing or actual use for it in the future. These standards are the proof that the government only shows students what they are supposed to see and what the government wants them to see, and not what they discover to be true or not on their own, through their own experiences. Because in a sense, that is what makes you you, your past experiences, in essence, history. These standards are a set of binoculars into the past, with no other way of seeing or learning about the same events from a different perspective, when they're just as right and just as valid as current textbooks today present them. The only perspective students in school are exposed to is through the white people or the more dominant lens. Looking back, each unit that was covered in the classroom was like a museum exhibit, looking in from the outside, separated by a glass case, or in this case, the future. It was inducing a kind of aloofness that I didn't care for. I never felt connected to what I was learning, and never felt connected to anybody I was learning it with, being in the minority group in a class of mainly white people. I wanted to move on to math or language arts instead, or science, or literally any other subject. I remember being forced to learn a song of the U.S. presidents from George Washington all the way to Barack Obama. I was so happy and so proud of myself for learning this, and I would show it off to absolutely everyone who didn't ask. Why was it so pertinent that a child who's only 10 years of age to learn this? Why would they care? I feel like they have better things to do with their time than memorize the presidents in order. At the same time, it seemed right that a child should learn about the traditional U.S. history through memorizing presidents in order when they were in office. Cheney would appreciate this part of the history standards, which was around 2008, since it was more traditional than multicultural, as was argued. It was a pretty white thing, asserting dominance type of move, if you ask me. Very subtle. In contrast to Sleeter's propaganda ideals about textbooks, Nash argues using a more scientific approach to teaching history. In terms of history standards, facts must be proven, much like hypotheses are proven using the scientific method in that field. I still side with Sleeter on this argument because it is nearly impossible to prove events happened or that there is only one correct position when learning about a situation, since history is more of a story to be told than facts to be proven. This prevents other perspectives from making it to textbooks, even more so than they already are. Trying to decide what goes into a textbook and what to explicitly teach in schools is a very politically charged dilemma. The view of the world is being shaped for children, and students who don't know any better and grow up inherently perpetuating the Black legend. This leads to the inability to write their own history and story of who they are today, because without history told from various perspectives, including their own, and in fact most importantly their own, who are we? This presence of the Black legend has been around longer than we know, longer than we think we know, most probably back to the start of the U.S., as stated earlier. I'm only being exposed to it now, and for that I'm eternally grateful. I start to notice things like signage and verbiage that I wouldn't normally notice before as showcasing the Black legend, even if it's subtle. If the U.S. is really a melting pot of cultures from around the world, as we advertise we are, then why doesn't that show in the one place that is shaping the future?